Welcome to a Monday edition of The Sweat. I'm Jessie, Coffield. He's Brendan Glasheen. And for the next 60 minutes, we're brightening up your Monday with all things DFS and sports betting.
Are we now? And since it's Monday, why not start with tonight's matchup between the Chiefs and Chargers, Monday Night Football. DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich and Reed Fowler are here to chase or fade some of this evening's betting options. Hello, fellas.
Okay, guys, so the projected game total tonight is 52.5. Jeff, chase or fade that these two teams go over that total?
Yeah, I just don't know how you fade the over in this game with Patrick Mahomes being back and everything considered. I mean, the Chargers defense, they just haven't been as stalwart last year. And even last year when these two teams met, both games went well over this total both times. I mean, it's just hard to figure out how the Chargers are really going to shut down Mahomes here from putting up 28, 30 points. And then you have the other side, which is the real reason why I like the over, is just the Chiefs defense is starting to regress again. You have running backs kind of going hog wild, even quarterbacks now putting up multiple passing touchdowns 3 of the last 4 games. I have no reason here to even consider the under at 52.5. I think it's too low by a couple points. So I really like the over.
Reed, you going with the over here?
Well, a couple things. First, is that whiteboard a knock at a one Brendan Glasheen? Is that a let's go from a Brendan Glasheen or?
No, it's just out there. That's just my motto, Reed.
Words to live by.
And I wish
if it insults Brendan in the meantime, though, I mean that's good. I don't.
Right, exactly. No, perfect. I wish Bukes was on the show because maybe he say the altitude gets to these guys and maybe they don't play as well. But look, that's not going to be the case. And Mahomes has come out and said maybe if I'm at altitude, I can throw it 100 yards in the air. I'm not going to doubt that. I'm pretty sure you could probably launch it about 90 yards in the air at altitude. But going back to this question, yeah, I'm with Jeff here. How do you go away from the over? Kansas City, 4-1 in their last 5 hitting the over. And if you look at the Chargers, like Jeff was mentioning, defense hasn't been good, and they've been putting out 22 points on average over the last 3 games. But look at this matchup specifically, especially Rivers and these guys in the Chargers. They play division games very strong, whether it be a defensive battle. They're always with it if they want to score up. We've seen these games hit the over. And if you just look at Mahomes and then what these guys have done in the last 6 games, 4 of this head-to-head matchup has gone over. So I'm with Jeff here as well. Like this game, you want to cheer for the over as well. We've had some bad Thursday night games and showdown games and primetime games. This one should be really, really good. So yeah, hit the over.
Reed, you said his name. Patrick Mahomes is back to putting up crazy offensive numbers, missed some time with injury. Pass yardage total for tonight, his is 320.5. Do you chase or fade? That number is too high, and Mahomes will go under that total.
Well, it's a 2-part question. I'm going to fade it's too high. I'm going to chase that he goes over. Just look at what he's been able to do. And again, this really is part and parcel with that first question is if we think that this game is going to go over, which I do think it does, it's going to be through the air. You don't really have, yes, Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler do form a very formidable backfield with the Chargers. But just look at the games that Mahomes has gone and thrown over 300 yards or 320 yards. Like I think 4 of the 5 games that has happened, it's hit the over. Like the score has been in the 60s. And so again, if I'm feeling like this should be the over, which I do think it does, Mahomes is going to have to pass for quite a ton. Now look, you can run against Kansas City. That's the only thing against this. But Damian Williams, LaShawn McCoy should be in healthy scratch, and if he's not, really don't think that it's going to just be a running back game for Kansas City. So yeah, I believe he goes over this number.
All right, Jeff, so chase or fade, the number is too high, and does Mahomes go under this total of 320.5?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you just looked at the opposing quarterbacks versus the Chargers, you'd probably lean towards the under. But it's just such a different beast with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he threw for 370 yards against Baltimore, 440 yards against Oakland. Those are teams that like to run the ball too. So it just doesn't matter who he's facing. The Chiefs are so efficient at getting the ball downfield so quickly. Even if the Chargers control the time of possession, he could easily exceed this number. Over.
Melvin Gordon has been gaining more of a share of the offense over the last few weeks. His rushing yards total is 70.5 for tonight. Jeff, chase or fade that he goes over this total tonight against the Chiefs defense?
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much a Melvin Gordon is performing that well. I mean, his yards per carry is still only around 4 yards or something over the last couple games, but it's an opportunity thing. The snap counts are up. The red zone opportunities are going almost exclusively to Melvin Gordon. I think 70.5 against this Chiefs rush defense is just too low. I think even if the Chargers get down, they're still going to give the ball to Melvin Gordon. They installed a new OC. That's what they want to do. And it's not like Kansas City has been like a stalwart in this department anyways. Obviously 188 yards to Derrick Henry. But just the entire year, this has been their weakest part of the defense. So, yeah, I'm going over here with Melvin Gordon.
Reed, chase or fade, he goes over 70.5.
I'm going to chase it as well. Kansas City has not been good against the run. They've given up close to 150 yards over the last 3 games to opposing running backs, and they haven't really given up a ton of attempts either. I think they were like in the mid-20s in terms of attempts per game run against them. And so highly efficient backs are that's sort of the calling card after the game is over for running backs that are going up against Kansas City. We see Melvin Gordon now probably getting into that 18 to 20 touch range. And so he could easily do this, especially getting those big runs. That's kind of what this team needs if they want to beat Kansas City. So, over.
All right, we've got some decent tight ends in this game tonight. Travis Kelce, Hunter Henry. Kelce has a receiving yards total of 70.5, same number as we just were talking about, while Henry is at 64.5. Reed, I guess we want to give you the 2-part questions to start tonight. So he's got at least 6 targets. Each of these guys have at least 6 targets in each of their last 4 games. But chase or fade that tonight it is Hunter Henry that goes over his receiving yards total, and Travis Kelce does not.
So I'm going to chase Henry and fade Kelce, and I'll get to the wide and fading Kelce later on in the showdown, so you guys have to watch the end of the program. Yeah, a little tease there, Jeffrey. It's what we call in the industry. Look, with Hunter Henry, it's volume-based, too, with Kansas City. They're giving up a ton of targets to the opposing tight ends. And really since last year, Kansas City has not been good at defending the tight ends. They give up, I believe it's a little over 6 yards per target they've allowed to the position, and that ranks as one of the higher in the NFL to opposing tight ends. And Henry has gotten 17 targets over the last 2 games. He clearly is that guy. And so with that volume that they're getting and just the arithmetic behind how many targets that Hunter Henry is getting in this game or should be getting in this game, yeah, I think he hits over. And Kelce, again, I'll tell you guys why, but I don't think he does.
Hey, Jeff, don't worry. Reed is not supposed to ask you what's on the whiteboard. That's also a foul in television. You're supposed to just let the whiteboard do the talking. How do you feel about Hunter Henry going over his receiving total and Travis Kelce not going over his receiving total?
Yeah, so, I mean, the Chargers are definitely, just as far as their linebacking crew and just their coverage in general, they're just really strong covering against the tight ends. I mean, it's just the way they're set up, their defensive scheme. It's hard for me to be ultra bullish on Travis Kelce. Obviously, it's the Chiefs, and he's got Mahomes. So it wouldn't shock me if he went over this, but I'm going to have to chase this too. I think Hunter Henry, just his level of targets since he's come back has been pretty insane. And he's averaging over 8 targets a game, basically, in a game where you're expecting that Phillip Rivers and the Chargers are probably going to be in, like, pass-happy, 2-minute offense for possibly the entire fourth quarter. So, yeah, I got to go with the over here with Hunter Henry. I think he's got, at least from a volume perspective, could have a good night. And Travis Kelce, I mean, he's still an elite target. It's just, I think with the Chargers scheme, you're going to see the Kansas City wide receivers have bigger nights.
All right, you guys stick around. Going to need your picks for tonight's Showdown contest. And earlier today, I caught up with former Notre Dame and Cowboys wide receiver Rocket Ishmael. So that interview is coming up in just a couple minutes.
Tara Linazak here with a DraftKings update. The future of college football and really the future of the NFL changed forever over the weekend. Alabama star quarterback and potential #1 overall pick in the NFL draft, Tua Tagovailoa, suffered a devastating season-ending injury on Saturday. Tua dislocated his hip and suffered a fracture to the posterior wall during the second quarter of Alabama's win over Mississippi State. To make matters worse, the Crimson Tide were up big, and Nick Saban said it was supposed to be Tua's last drive of the game. Now the star QB is set to undergo season-ending surgery on Monday, and though he is expected to make a full recovery, there's no telling when we will see him on the field again. It's entirely possible that we may never see him on the field again. The injury is drawing comparisons to Bo Jackson, whose career was cut short by a similar hip injury. At this point, everything is just speculation, so only time will tell if Tua can continue his career. It's an injury that likely changed the plans of many NFL teams heading into next year's draft, but right now all thoughts are with the talented 21-year-old to make a full and fast recovery.
Let's talk about this Dallas team. I mean, how far do you see this year's Cowboys team going?
Well, I really feel like potential-wise, the capacity to make it to minimum making it to the playoffs is like that's minimum. And I feel like, however, in moving forward in the playoffs, like whether it's wild card or whether they make it to the second round, I feel like from what I've seen so far, like everybody has to be on their A game in order for that to happen. I don't feel like, and I say weird because I feel like I'm a part of the team now. I'm in Dallas.
Of course.
I feel like we're at the point, we have the way the team is made up. Talent and potential, whether it's coaching staff or players, is there, but like everybody has to be on their A game in order to like move deep into the playoffs. And so that's my general assessment.
Okay, what would you say is the best rivalry in the NFL right now?
Man, so wait a minute. I would, okay, just based off of the other day, and this is just right now, so this is in real time. I want to say what the Ravens did to the Patriots and the success that they had. It makes it kind of like an instant classic. And I think the Ravens are AFC, right? Are they Ravens AFC?
Yeah, they are. Ravens are AFC.
Okay, so the reason I asked that is because now you know with the Ravens and the way they're moving into the playoffs, or they're moving in the season, they are definitely going to have a shot to make it into the playoffs. And man, the way Lamar Jackson and their defense is moving, they have a legitimate shot to really do some damage. You know, the Patriots are there, and the thing that was interesting and why I think it makes it, as far as the rivalry, is the fact that in spite of the Patriots, to me, being one of the best teams, and the reason why not only are they one of the best teams is their capacity to adjust on the run in real time. And it's like, okay, even in their adjustments that they made when they played the Ravens, they weren't able to have success. And so now it's like, okay, what's going to happen the next time they meet? So anyway, in kind of like a real-time moment, I would say Ravens, Patriots.
Okay, all right. Now, who would you say is NFL MVP right now if you had to pick one?
Oh, I would say Lamar Jackson. I would have said Russell Wilson, but yeah, I'm going to say Lamar, man, because you take him away. Well, you take both of them away. Their teams, I don't think, are going to have near this success, but I think Lamar Jackson, if you take him out of the Ravens offense, it would be more of a blow than if you took Russell Wilson out of Seattle's offense.
And if you had to pick right now, who's making the Super Bowl and who wins?
Oh, snap. Well, so now it's like, since the Ravens and the Patriots haven't played yet, it's almost like default the Patriots, just because of what they represent on the coaching front, what they represent at the most important position in football, which is the quarterback. Their defense is outstanding. I would default them, but I'm going to just say I'll say Patriots right now.
Fair enough. All right, Rocket, thank you so much for making time for DraftKings today.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Chiefs 5-point favorites in Mexico City tonight. 52.5 is the over-under. Chiefs on the money line -235. Chargers +205. My lean here real quick. The Chargers just play sloppy all the time, but they always find themselves in close games and then they blow it at the end. So giving them 5 points, I kind of like that.
You go too, because you're on the same. You have the same consensus. I want to hear this. Are you prepared?
Yeah, let me bring up some numbers.
Numbers.
Anyways, I can't put money down on the Chargers. Like, have we watched how they looked over the past couple of weeks? Horrible. Their
They
offensive
look pretty
line
good against the Packers.
Like we thought the Texans had a bad offensive line. This might be even worse. It's been absolutely horrendous.
Sure.
So now the Chiefs, with all their weapons, healthy Patrick Mahomes, we're still liking the Chargers in this spot.
Well, what does all their weapons and a healthy Patrick Mahomes have to do with the offensive line of the Chargers?
Because they're not going to be able to get anything.
defense of the Chargers.
They're not going to be able to get anything going offensively. Sorry, that was actually really rude. They're not going to be able to get anything going
You
offensively.
finally recognized it.
Like, pretty standard with how you've been the whole show.
That's true.
All right, I want to bring up, you said how terrible have the Chargers been recently. Their last games, lost by 2 points, won over the Packers.
As underdogs.
Won by a point.
As
lost by
underdogs.
3 points.
Look at the teams. Look at the teams. Titans, Bears, Packers. That was just a weird game.
Packers,
Yeah, but
Raiders, who are in the playoffs.
The Chiefs just lost to the Titans. Like, the Chiefs aren't playing well. So the Chiefs started 3-0 and 3-0 against the spread. Since then, they've dropped 4 games. They're 2-5 against the spread in their last 7. And then you have a Chargers team that generally gets going a little bit more at this point of the season. Prior to a 2-point divisional loss on the road on a short week, they won outright as underdogs against the Packers, outright as underdogs against the Bears. They played on the Thursday night game, so they've had 10 days off to prepare for this one in the division.
Yep.
The Chiefs have been practicing at home all week. The Chargers have been practicing at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, which is the same elevation as where we're going to be for this fiesta tonight in Mexico City. I think the points here with the Chargers is the smart way to go. Now, Bucks, tell us why you're going to hop on the public favorite that has like 70% of the money on the Chiefs -5.
I mean, you're kind of right.
All right, welcome back to The Sweat. It's time to take a look at tonight's 9-game NBA slate. Joining us now, Ryan Mogjosh, host of the Four Seasons podcast for Ball is Life. We appreciate you stopping by, Ryan.
Yeah, so this is called over-under.
Yeah.
It's very simple. So will the following games go over or under their projected total? Let's start with Portland at Houston. Ryan, the expected total in this one is 230. You going over or under that mark? Oh, we can't hear you. Oh, no.
The
Can't
mustache
hear
looks
you.
good.
I think just... There we go.
there he is.
Amazing.
You like the mustache? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I was saying we love the mustache, yeah.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm going to go over here, even though 230.5 is pretty high. I really like the matchup offensively with Portland versus Houston. Houston and Harden are playing out of their minds great right now. You cannot miss. Portland 11th in pace. That's pretty fast, even though it's kind of teetering towards the middle of the pack as far as the NBA goes. But opponents' points per game, they're 21st. So they give up a lot of points. They're going to play maybe one of the best, second best offenses in the league tonight. I like over for Portland and Houston.
And we have Nick Whalen of RotoWire joining us right now. Nick, we're talking about Portland at Houston. The expected total in this one is 230. Are you going over or under that mark?
I'm going to go over. This Houston defense is steadily improving. They're quietly on that 7-game winning streak. They're up to 16th in defense right now. Portland, meanwhile, though, sits 19th at defense. And both of these teams are top 11 in offense and pace. So even though, like I said, this Houston defense without Jeff Bzdelik, even though they got off to that colossally bad start, they're giving up 150-plus points to the Wizards. They've kind of found their way there. But with the way that this offense is playing, with the way that James Harden's been playing during this 7-game win streak, 43 points, 8 assists per game, 45% shooting. He's taking almost 16 threes per game over the last 7 games. I like him to keep going, and I think this offense could maybe hit another gear because they should get Daniel House back. Not a guy that really registers on the national radar all that much, but without Eric Gordon, really one of the third or fourth options for this team and a great shooter who really spaces the floor for Houston. So 2 defenses that are still kind of scuffling a little bit. I'll go over on that number.
All right, next up, the Bucks are at the Bulls. This one is sitting at 231.5. Looking now, these two teams actually played each other last Thursday, and the total was at 239. Ryan, does that weigh into your prediction here, over or under?
It might a little bit, but I'm still going under here. The Bulls have trouble scoring, period. That mixed with the Bucks playing really good defensively. the reason why the Bucks are so high in points per game and pace, a big reason of that was Chris Middleton. Now he's out. I just think that mixed with the Bucks actually playing defense and playing a team that has trouble putting the ball in the basket, which is the Bulls. They're 28th ranked in offensive rating. I don't like that mixture. And today, I'm going under 231.5.
Over or under, Nick?
This was a really tough one. I went back and forth. Like you said, these teams did hit the over pretty easily when they played less than a week ago. I'll go over again. Yeah, I know the Bucks only got to 102 against Indiana on Saturday. I agree with Ryan that Chris Middleton is a big part of the reason that they've been able to put up some of those gaudy point totals early on. But they're still number one in pace, and they the Bucks scored 124 points against Chicago on Thursday, despite hitting only 6 threes in that game. That's as many as Kobe White had for Chicago by himself. Now, of course, the Bulls had 18 threes as a team in that game. That's not going to happen again, but I also don't think Milwaukee is only going to hit 6 threes again. They're 17 of their last 72 from beyond the arc over the last 2 games. I think they're due for some major progression there. So, maybe the Bulls, don't put up as many points as they did on Thursday, but I think there's a chance that the Bucks could approach 130. And then at that point, you're just hoping Chicago can do its part and, get to 105 or 110.
Boston at Phoenix, total is 227. What do you think, Ryan?
I'm going to go over. I really like what these two teams are doing right now. They're gelling. Their offenses look fantastic. I'm a big sucker for Phoenix right now. It seems like every single time I watch them, they're just hitting wide open threes. Baines, Saric, Kaminsky. I'm starting a bunch of those guys sprinkled in there in some lineups tonight. But just both these teams rolling. I know Boston just got their hearts broken in their first loss in 10 games, but I don't think that'll be an issue tonight. Both teams rolling. I like over tonight.
Nick, where are you going?
I'm going over as well. I'm going 3 for 3 on the overs. I did not think we'd be saying this, but these are 2 top 5 offenses right now. I think by far the more surprising of those 2 is Phoenix. But even as they've cooled off a little bit from that red hot start, they've still been a really, really productive team. Like Ryan said, hitting a ton of threes. And this, the Celtics have struggled a little bit to find offense without Gordon Hayward. I mean, it's such a small sample that we really don't know for sure. But scoring only 99 points yesterday in Sacramento is a little bit concerning. But even on the back-to-back, I think they do get back on track against this Phoenix team. But, to me, this over is really more about the Suns. I mean, they're the team that's been doing their part when you look at some of the big numbers that they've been a part of. They have at least 107 points in every game but one thus far. They're 3.5-point favorites tonight, so the implied total, puts that at around 115 you're expecting from the Suns. They've been over 114 in 8 of 11 games and over 120 in 5 of those 8 games. So they really haven't had trouble regardless of who the defense has been, with the exception of a sub-100 game against Utah early on. They haven't had trouble getting into the mid-1 teens, and I think they can do that again. So I'll take the over Phoenix at Boston.
Well, the matchup you both have been looking forward to so much. The Cleveland Cavaliers are taking on the New York Knicks in New York City. Over under 210.5. Nick, let's go right back to you. Your thoughts?
Am I able to just pass? Like, do we even have to give a pick on this one? I'll take the under. This is the 23rd versus the 27th team in terms of pace, the 26th offense versus the 30th ranked offense. I mean, the Cavs, I guess, have been suspiciously respectable on defense under John Beilein this season. You do have to hand that to them. But, working more in favor of the under tonight. No Kevin Love for Cleveland. I mean, if anything, I think maybe that makes their defense better and their offense worse. They're still without Larry Nance. They're going to be starting a rookie in Kevin Porter Jr., guy who's been really up and down, mostly down thus far on the wing. So, I think they could really have trouble scoring with that first unit. And, of course, neither of these teams have much of a bench. Knicks haven't been able to score on anyone. They haven't topped 106 points since the second game of the season. They only managed 87 points against this Cavs team 8 days ago. Every number that I looked into just kind of screamed under at me.
All right, Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I wanted to say there's some Madison Square Garden magic here, but I'm going to go with Nick. I'm going to say under, even though I really wanted to go over. The key to me, though, is no Kevin Love. He makes everything Cleveland go. Tristan Thompson's going to be a good piece to maybe think about starting because there's literally no bigs that can play. No John Henson, no Larry Nance, no Kevin Love. But a suspicious part of me, both these teams are coming off a loss and they're playing each other. Both these teams are coming in thinking this is not a must win, but this is a good opportunity to steal a win, and wins for us don't come easy. So even though I really wanted to go over, I'm going to have to say under.
All right, good stuff. Thank you, guys. We're going to turn our attention to tonight's hockey slate right after this week's edition of Who'd I Miss On?
All right, Week 11 Sunday is over. It means it's time to find out who Levitan missed on. I'm Brendan Glasheen, and this is Who'd I Miss On with Adam Levitan, a segment we do every Monday during the football season with Levy. We recap his not-so-great plays from the NFL Sunday main slate. We might as well call this the wide receiver special of WeMo. You were high on Pat's wide receiver, Mohamed Sanu, just 2 catches for 4 yards against the Eagles. Wind was a factor, I heard, in Philly. And Tom Brady just never got comfortable. I suppose it's still a feeling out process with Sanu.
Yeah, and I think maybe we could have found ways off of Sanu once it was announced that N'Keal Harry was going to be active, because then we had Julian Edelman, we had Harry, we had Dorsett, we had James White, and we had, a game that projected, I thought, to be pretty low scoring. So I did expect a pass-heavy approach out of the Patriots. But should have thought more about how much Mohamed Sanu was going to play and exactly where he would play on the field, given that N'Keal Harry was back.
On to Mike Evans. He apparently prefers playing on the road. Last 2 home games, under 13 DK fantasy points, just 10.9 against the Saints. His lowest number since a goose egg in Week 5. How do the Saints keep Evans in check?
Yeah, no Marshawn Lattimore, and they still were able to keep him in check. And maybe it's a trend that's happening with teams just saying that other guys are going to beat us. It's not going to be Chris Godwin. It's not going to be Mike Evans, because this is the second straight week that we've seen relatively low target shares for the wide receivers. And then we see Cam Brate racking up targets. We see other secondary options that we didn't see in the first part of the season racking up targets. So I'm not sure that we've seen a change there. Usually the pendulum kind of swings back and forth, but it's certainly something to monitor on Mike Evans and Chris Godwin.
And last wideout, Devontae Parker of the Miami Dolphins. You were not on him. Excellent against Buffalo. Season best, 23.5 points, 7 grabs, 135 yards on 10 targets. Woulda, coulda, shoulda been a great value play. Parker was only 4,700.
Yeah, and this one really hurt because I wanted to play Josh Allen and John Brown. Thought they were an awesome play, but couldn't find anybody on Miami to bring it back with that I liked, and kind of didn't. I want to play Devontae Parker due to matchup, but with Preston Williams out, we know that Ryan Fitzpatrick's willing to throw the ball down the field. He's willing to be aggressive. He's willing to commit turnovers, and he's willing to throw it up to Devontae Parker no matter what the matchup is. So Devontae Parker's been playing well all year. No Preston Williams, despite the matchup, should have been on Devontae Parker.
That is who Adam Levitan missed on in Week 11. You can find his coverage on DK Live, the DK Playbook. He's on Twitter at Adam Levitan. We'll catch you next Monday, Levy, to see who you missed on in Week 12.
All right, sounds good.
All right, just a short and sweet 2-game hockey slate this evening. And speaking of short and sweet, even though I've only seen him sitting down my entire life, Jeff Ulrich is kind enough to come back and talk some puck.
Oh, and 5'7" and 3/4 short, buddy, or what?
Oh.
You're 5'10". I'm 5'8", so.
5'7.5".
Yeah.
Ooh.
Me?
Okay. I'm not going to lie on air, okay? I'm not.
All right, let's go, right? Just like the whiteboard says, right?
All right, you two. It's NHL opening face-off, so Jeff will choose between top options at each position. And remember, it's only 2 games, so not much to pick from. Jeff, the top 2 salaries at center are Washington's Evgeny Kuznetsov at 6,700 and Anze Kopitar of the Kings. He's 6,500. Who do you like out of that duo?
I mean, this is pretty much as even as it gets because the price, like you said, Jesse, are basically exactly the same. So they're both averaging just tiny old bit over a point per game pace. They both play around 20 minutes a night. They're both centering their team's top lines. The obvious difference here is that Kuznetsov gets to play with Alexander Ovechkin, and he's actually on a good team in the Washington Capitals. It doesn't mean Kopitar is bad for fantasy, though. Realistically, if you're building a cash game, you probably want exposure to both these guys tonight because they both look a little bit undervalued. I would just go Kopitar, though, if I'm building big GPPs. It's really not the worst matchup in the world. The Coyotes don't exactly have the greatest penalty kill or anything. And Kopitar ends up potting a couple points. He could easily win you GPP. So for GPPs, I'll lean Kopitar in this matchup.
All right, on the wing, Alex Ovechkin, by far the most expensive, $8,300. Is Ovi worth paying up for, or would you go to a cheaper option, like another Washington winger, TJ Oshie at $6K, Jacob Vrana at $5,700, or just look to the opposition, like Anaheim's Richard Rakell at $5,600?
Yeah, I mean, I think on this slate, again, it kind of comes down to what you're playing. Cash games, you're probably just going to want to lock Ovechkin in and then go for some value. I don't mind Rakell. I'd probably rather go down to Clayton Keller if you're looking for a value winger tonight. He's a player who averages quite a few shots on goal. The Coyotes don't have like a huge, blow you out offense or anything like that. But on a 2-game slate, you can't be picky, and they're going up against the Kings with a bottom 5 penalty kills. So I think Keller's actually in a really good spot tonight. He's probably one of my favorite plays, just from a pure value perspective. But you got to lock in Obi and probably just take a value winger with him.
On the blue line, John Carlson, $7,700. He costs $2,000 more than the next defenseman, but is he worth it? And if he is, who's a value D guy that you can match him with, because you're going to have to pay up for him? And if he isn't, who do you like?
Yeah, again, I mean, obviously you probably aren't going to be able to fit in all the Washington studs, so defense might be a good place where you can differentiate. That's probably what I would do. Drew Doughty's in almost as good a spot. I mean, he's a player who obviously isn't quite as offensively talented as Carlson at this stage in his career, but his block shot rate is up there, and he's always a little bit underpriced just because of the team he plays on. But again, I mentioned it's a 2-game slate. They're going up against the Coyotes, who it's a pretty good spot for the Kings power play. I mean, relatively speaking, to the rest of what we have to choose from tonight, right? So I kind of like going down to Doughty tonight, and then you can pick and choose. I mean, the Arizona D-men are in great spots too. I mean, Goligoski and Ekman-Larsson, both good value picks. And if you do really want to go with Carlson, you could always go way down. This isn't really a play that you should have much faith in, but I mean, Matt Roy from the LA Kings, good block shot rate, could definitely get you the block shot bonus. And Jason Demers from the Arizona Coyotes, really cheap too, and same kind of thing. Just looking to get the block shots from those guys.
Jeff, 2 games means 4 netminders. Who is your mans between the pipes this evening?
Yeah, again, I mean, you got to approach this a little bit as what are you doing? What are you playing? If you're in a big GPP, I mean, you're going to get a lot of leverage. We have 2 big favorites on this slate, obviously Washington and the Coyotes, but you kind of look at their goalies. Holtby and Ranta aren't exactly like the steadiest goalies in the league. They can definitely have off nights, especially Ranta, I would say. I kind of like going to John Gibson if you're in big GPPs. Is a type of player who, if the Ducks are going to win, it's probably because Gibson stopped like 40 shots. And if he stopped 40 shots, he's going to have a massive night on DraftKings. I think for cash games, you're probably much better just paying up for Holtby. But definitely like the spot for Gibson. He played well his last time out, too. Kind of had like one of those big nights that I was suggesting. It's not 36 or 37 shots.
Jeff, slate-approved pick for tonight's 2-game slate.
Yeah, I'll go with Clayton Keller, the guy I mentioned before. I mean, I just think it's a really good spot for the Arizona power play to get off. Obviously, it's not an offense you're going to target traditionally on a bigger slate, but at the same time, we don't have much to pick and choose from. He's got a good shot at the shots on goal bonus here, I think, so give me some Clayton Keller.
All right, Jeff, you will rejoin us later on for Chiefs-Chargers Showdown picks. Our hoop heads have the floor one more time, though, right after this.
Hey, I'm Carolyn Azek, and with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. At this point in the fantasy season, injuries to significant players could really make or break you. So for Marlon Mack owners, you're not going to like this news I'm about to tell you. The Colts running back broke his carry hand during the third quarter of Indianapolis' win over Jacksonville. Mack was on his way to one of the best games of his career right up until the injury. He finished with 14 carries for 109 yards and a touchdown, totaling 19.9 fantasy points. NFL Network's Ian Rappaport has already confirmed he will miss Thursday's big divisional matchup with the Texans. Mack owners can take a look at Jonathan Williams and Nyheim Hines to fill the void. Williams likely has the higher floor this week against Houston. He saw the majority of the carries when Mack went down and rushed for a career-high 116 yards. Hines will still factor in as the pass-catching back. The high-flying Texans offense will be looking to prove something after they were shut down by Baltimore. So Hines could be in line for a solid game if Indy has to keep up on offense.
Okay, promise NFL Showdown picks are coming, but we need to hit on this 9-game basketball slate one more time. Ryan Mogjosh, host of the Four Seasons podcast for Ball is Life, and RotoWire's Nick Whalen are back.
All right, guys, we present NBA Pick and Roll. We give you 2 DFS options, and you pick one. You roll off the other. And shocker at center, Karl Anthony Towns, once again the high-priced man, the only center over $10,000, so we're going to head down a bit. And look what we have here. There's Kristaps Porzingis, $7,500, fresh off back-to-back 40-plus DK point efforts for the Dallas Mavericks. You buying into his recent stretch here, Ryan, or you're looking at his Lone Star State opposition here, LaMarcus Aldridge, who is $7,300, 54.75 DK points last time out?
I am buying in. I'm going Kristaps.
All right.
Seems like a lot of us have been waiting for this Kristaps breakout game, and he just got it this past weekend against Toronto. 20 points, 15 boards. and I'm riding the heater. I'm going Kristaps over LaMarcus Aldridge.
All right, Nick Whalen, are you going Kristaps or LaMarcus?
I'm going Porzingis as well. I'm willing to pay up, the extra $200 tonight. He's been right around 45 DraftKings points in each of his last 2 games. Those come on the heels of that terrible 1-for-11 showing in limited action against Boston last week. So, he still kind of had a few of those clunkers. I think the floor for Porzingis right now is probably a little bit lower than you'd like it to be. He's still finding his stride alongside Doncic. And this has really been more of a, option A to option B type of partnership with how well Doncic has played, rather than him being option 1 and option 1A. But still, give me Porzingis with the hope that, he can get on track from 3 against the San Antonio defense. He's just 3 of 16 from beyond the arc over his last 3 games.
At forward, another scenario where one player is way more expensive than the rest. So with Giannis at 11.3, that's 2,000 more than the next closest player. We're going to look lower. Paul George has looked great in his 2 games for the Clippers, and he's 8,100. Taking a stroll down Narrative Street, George faces his latest former team, the Oklahoma City Thunder. So do you like George in that spot? Or, Nick, would you consider someone like Boston's Jason Tatum for 7,600 at the Suns?
This is really, really tough, and it's not often that you see a guy who, for all we know, could still be on somewhat of a minutes limit, being priced ahead of Jason Tatum, who's at 7,600. Tatum's been a little bit disappointing, even in the small sample that we've had without Gordon Hayward. Took just 13 shots the other night against Sacramento. I know there was some hope, and certainly there still is over the next few weeks, that he really steps up without Gordon Hayward. But, even though I'm still a little bit worried that, this could be a close game and maybe at some point they pull back the reins on PG. Do they want him playing 36, 37 minutes if that's what it takes? I got to roll with him tonight at 8,100. 33 points in 24 minutes in his debut. Then follows that up with 37 points in 20 minutes. He's getting to the line, at an extreme rate per possession and per minute. And even tonight, I assume this will be a closer game. They're not going to win by 47 points or whatever it was the other night again. So I do expect him, even if he's not able to extend, 35 plus minutes, should get closer to 30 minutes. And in a game in which that, the Clippers could very well be without Kawhi Leonard, I think it could be another situation where they lean really heavily on their other star.
Ryan, where are you going on this one?
So it 100% for me depends on what Kawhi is doing. Is he still a game time decision? Do we know?
Right now, he's still questionable. That's what we've got right now on Kawhi Leonard.
I'm going to go Tatum then. I don't like when 2 superstars are going to be playing together for the first time as far as daily fantasy purposes go. There's too many variables there. So I'm going to play it safe, and I'm going to save $500 if my math's correct, and I'm going to go with Tatum versus a Suns team who I like this game a lot for pace purposes, for making open shots. Like I said before, these 2 teams are on heaters right now as far as offense goes. I'm going to take Tatum because Kawhi might play a little bit. Plus, I'm kind of scared away from Paul George minutes restriction, despite him going off in 20 minutes or whatever he played last game.
Yeah, those 2 are tough considering their West Coast starts. So I guess the advice there is keep an eye on the news, folks.
I do like the quick maths, though.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's look at the guard position now. The theme continues. James Harden is ridiculously priced for good reason, over $12,000, and again, over $2,000 more than the next closest player. Crazy, but do you pay up for the beard tonight or go with that second highest price guard who happens to be, Nick, I think you said his name earlier, Luka Doncic at 9,800. We'll go to you first, Nick, because and we'll go to you, Ryan, after Nick, because, you're here, and you guys are into the Kristaps Luka thing, right?
Nick? I am, and I'm going to go Luka. Part of me just has such a hard time seeing the price tag on Harden, and really kind of talking yourself into it being worth it. Although we basically had this conversation for 70% of last year when he went on that crazy run, and we just kind of kept asking ourselves, he can't keep doing this, right? He kind of had 1 month where that stood above the rest, but it does look like we're heading that same way, whether it's Chris Paul or Russell Westbrook by his side. It just hasn't really mattered with James Harden, but for me, it's still worth it to save the money with Luka. You're staying under, 5 figures in terms of salary. He might not have the night-to-night ceiling of Harden. He's not going to go off, for 48, 51 points, whatever it might be with James Harden. But Luka as a rebounder, Luka as an assist man is right there, if not better than Harden in 2 of those categories. And, he's coming off of a down game, easily, I think, his second worst game of the year going back to opening night. He's been much more consistent than last season. He's shooting the ball better from 2-point range. Like I said, rebounding the ball at a much better rate. I'll save a little bit of money and go with Luka tonight.
All right, Ryan, your thoughts? Luka Doncic, or are you paying up for James Harden?
I'm paying up. You can take all my money. I don't care. James Harden is so worth it to me. His last 7 games, I have it here written down, 70.4 DraftKings points. His last 7 games. He's doing insane things, and I will never not pay for him unless he makes me pay one time. Then I'll slow my roll. But even if he was 16K, I'd probably pay up.
All right.
All right, where can you find the best value on this slate, Nick?
I'll just throw a few names out quick. I mean, without Kevin Love, I think Tristan Thompson is the name to watch. In Cleveland, he's at 5,600, not an extreme value, but if you really, really want to save up, I think Alfonso McKinney is a guy who could see increased minutes tonight with both Love and Larry Nance out. And then with Indiana, I think TJ Warren, is a guy who took a ton of shots the other night. They're banged up as well. And then Aaron Holiday is another fairly cheap option with Malcolm Brogdon out of the lineup.
Ryan, where are you going for some value?
He took both of mine. Tristan Thompson, he absolutely nailed. No Kevin Love, no Larry Nance, no John Henson. Who knows if he'll ever play again. And then Aaron Holiday was my secret gem of the night because there's no TJ McConnell. There's no Malcolm Brogdon. Aaron Holiday looks like a solid player when he gets some minutes. So those are both my gems.
I'm really bummed out. There's no Carmelo Anthony yet. And tonight, the Blazers are at the Rockets. Would have been a great narrative. But anyway, that's a different story for another day, I guess. How about a slate-approved pick? Ryan, you first.
I've mentioned it 12 times already. I really like this Portland-Houston matchup. My lock is Damian Lillard. I like to play players that play against the Rockets because they play blazing fast and they don't play much defense. So any combo of either Harden or Lillard, I'm all over tonight.
Blazing fast. Nice pun. How about you, Nick?
I'm sticking with Tristan Thompson. He's a guy that I have maligned for much of his career as a guy who just seemed to miss layup after layup on great passes from LeBron James. But out of nowhere, he has morphed into one of the better fantasy centers in the league so far. 3 blocks the other night. He's never been a great shot blocker. Had 3 assists in that game as well. Like we said, with all the injuries in Cleveland tonight, I think this is a prime opportunity for Tristan Thompson to go off against that Knicks front court.
All right, Nick is watching Knicks Cavs. Enjoy that one.
Be locked in.
All right, thanks for your time tonight, guys. Chiefs Chargers showdown picks from Reed and Jeff are next. But first, let's hear what's going on with the Pat Mayo experience.
I lean the over on both of those, but I like the 5.5 receptions as an over. He's going to probably get a backup cornerback here with Kendall Fuller being injured, and he's going to be a game-time decision. So if you get that for Keenan Allen, in a really nice spot against the Chiefs in the middle of the field where they've been susceptible. He'll get Rashawn Fenton, who's filling in at slot cornerback. I'll just take my chances there with a guy who has now been 3 weeks removed from this injury, and it's kind of been underreported on. He was kind of hobbled for 2 or 3 weeks there with an injury. Seems to be fully healthy now against a backup cornerback. I think this is just in general fantasy DFS, if it's fantasy or real life for betting. I think this is a huge Keenan Allen spot, so I like both of those props, the over for him.
How about 4.5 total sacks in this game?
From both sides total?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I like that one. I mean, you still have injuries on both offensive lines. I think Okun is still questionable / probably doubtful for this game. So yeah, I like both. I like both of that. Both offensive lines are a little bit hobbled up. The defensive line for the Chiefs is still banged up, but they got Chris Jones back a few weeks ago, so that definitely helps with generating pressure. And you still have Bosa, who's been dominating the last 2 or 3 games for the Chargers. So yeah, 4.5 total sacks. That sounds pretty good in a game where I'd imagine there's going to be a lot of pass attempts, at least somewhere around the 70 range in pass attempts.
Well, as it pertains to DraftKings, then it sounds like you want to build around Keenan Allen. He's $8,400 overall. You juice him up to be a captain. It pushes him over $10,000. But is that the route you think you'll go?
Yeah, right now I really like Keenan Allen, and the price tag is just really nice. He's been very mediocre to bad, but again, there was 2 or 3 weeks where he was playing limited, and even if he wasn't playing limited snaps, he was just dealing with an injury. He came out a couple of times, but he said now since the bye week that he feels healthy. So this is a spot where I just like the overall matchup and the skill set for a price down wide receiver in Keenan Allen. It's interesting, the entire offense, really, all the weapons for the Chargers on this slate. You have $8,800 Phillip Rivers, $86 Gordon, $84 Keenan Allen, and then $82 Hunter Henry. So they're all priced right next to each other. I kind of like Keenan Allen over all those guys at similar price ranges.
If there's a cheap player that you would consider going with in your showdown contest, who do you think it would be?
Yeah, so I'll go all the way to the bottom. $200 Andre Patton. I should also point out $500,000 on the showdown slate for DraftKings tonight. I don't know if it's a promotion because of this this situation or the stadium that they're going to be playing in, but interesting. It's $11 buy-in, so maybe that helps a little more expensive. But Yeah, so $200 Andre Patton, am I convicted by it? No, but I think he'll still be low owned. He's averaging 23.3 routes run per week over the last month. The only downside is he has 0 catches, so he's seeing like a target a week. But if you're out there for 24 routes run, and he's always like the 4th or 5th option in this offense, don't get me wrong, he's $200, but he's nowhere near the normal $200 player on a showdown slate because he's actually running routes. You're betting on a touchdown here, but if you're trying to win $500,000 by yourself, this seems like a route where 23 routes run will lead to a touchdown more times than the 5 routes run you're going to get out of these other $200 players. So there's not a lot of really cheap players that stand out to me, and I'd rather just punt all the way down and get some shares of Patton.
So it sounds to me like you're willing to do a Chargers 4-player, Chiefs 2-player build. And I guess if you're playing fewer lineups in one of these giant showdown contests, that's probably the way to play it, as I figure that'll be the more contrarian avenue.
Yeah, definitely. I do like that route, and you have a lot of priced up guys for the Chiefs. I mean, you have Mahomes, the highest price at $12,000, and then you have Tyreek and Kelsey. The main options here are all priced up. I want a lot of Tyreek on this slate. A lot of people might think he's going to be guarded by Casey Hayward. First of all, Tyreek Hill doesn't get shadowed because you really just can't shadow him, but Hayward is probably not going to be on Tyreek for most of this game. I imagine you get Casey Hayward lining up against Demarcus Robinson for the majority of this one. So that just helps Tyreek Hill even more. Even if it was Hayward for 40-50% of the game, it doesn't worry me all that much with Hill's skill set. So I really like Keenan Allen. I like Tyreek Hill. Don't have much confidence behind Andre Patton, but if he's going to see 2 or 3 targets at $200, you just have to pray that he finds the end zone.
As promised, DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich and Reed Fowler are back to give us their top picks for tonight's showdown contest between the Chiefs and the Chargers.
All right, start us off with your captain's pick, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm going to go Patrick Mahomes. It's pretty straightforward, really. Obviously, I feel like the Kansas City Chiefs are going to score a lot of points tonight. Patrick Mahomes showed last week he was very healthy, and it really comes down to I just don't really think that the LA Chargers pass defense can hold up against all the weapons. If it's not going to be Travis Kelce, it'll be Tyreek Hill. If it's not going to be Tyreek Hill, it's going to be Demarcus Robinson. It might even be Damian Williams out of the backfield. I just feel like the Chiefs coming off a couple losses is going to be a statement game. I do not mind paying up for Patrick Mahomes. It's always a little bit riskier when you're picking a receiver or a running back because you really need the concentrated points. With Patrick Mahomes, you know that you can get all the points if you put him at captain. So I'm going him as captain.
All right, Reed, are you going elsewhere? I guess there might be a fear of this being too chalky.
Yeah, but, I mean, you can't argue against Mahomes, so I'm not going to try to. I mean, the only thing is that it's expensive. I'm going to actually go to Phillip Rivers. Look at that bad game that we saw on primetime television last time from Rivers. No one's going to go to him, and it's going to give you some salary relief to fit Mahomes in there somehow, and some other these key guys like Hunter Henry, like a Tyreek Hill, and then paying down, right, because those are pretty expensive guys. But we see the floor. We see the floor with Rivers, and so that's the thing that you have to take into account and the risk that you have to hold on to. But we've also seen the ceiling, especially in these division games. We've seen Derek Carr, Jacoby Brissett, Joe Flacco. These guys reach top 10 value. So when you look at, Derek Carr, not Joe Flacco. But when you look at what he's been able to do, right, we see the ceiling of 300 yards, 3 touchdowns from a guy like Rivers early on this season. Again, a division game, we see the guy always get up. We see him always talking trash. This is a game that he needs to get right. This is the Chargers, but they need to get right. They put up an embarrassing game last week, and so I like playing the numbers and getting a potentially less chalky Phillip Rivers, who again is going to need to throw it a ton.
Who's a good compliment play to go with your captain here, Reed?
Yeah, if LaShawn McCoy is a healthy scratch, I really like Darrell Williams as a value play. But Austin Eckler is the running back on the other side that I really like to pair up with Phillip Rivers. I mean, if you just look at this Kansas City team, a lot of that chalk is going to go to Melvin Gordon, like we talked about earlier in the show. But I really like Austin Eckler. If you look at the Chiefs, yes, they give up a ton of yards on the ground, but they also give up the 4th most yards through the air to the receiving backs and the 2nd most touchdowns. And really, that's where Austin Eckler does his damage. This game, we think that the Chiefs are going to be high scoring. We think it's going to be a fast-paced game from the Chiefs side. And while the Chargers do run a slow-paced game, Austin Eckler is still in the fold. He's still in the mix. Again, he's a cheaper option to get some of those higher-priced guys in.
Jeff, who are you pairing with Mahomes?
Yeah, so I mentioned that I want to try and get all the Chiefs touchdowns on my squad today. I'm going to go with Damian Williams. I mean, it looks like he's going to play. Obviously, he had a little bit of a personal issue, but he's in Mexico City. And Reed mentioned, we don't really know what's going on with LaShawn McCoy here. So I think Damian Williams, who is easily the best Chiefs pass catcher out of the backfield, is 5 for 5 in targets last week. Going up against the Chargers defense, who've allowed at least 7 catches to running backs over their last 3 games. I really like this pick. I also don't think most people are going to go there tonight. I think it could be lower owned in GPPs because everyone is kind of confused about what's going on with the Chiefs backfield. But I think Damian Williams is Andy Reid's guy. He's in Mexico City by all reports. He's actually run the ball well, too, over his last 3 games, averaging well over 4 yards per carry. So, yeah, Damian Williams, pair him with Mahomes, and hopefully get a touchdown in all the touchdowns.
Jeff, let's go right back to you here. We got to find some value on this slate. Are you going with another Kansas City Chief?
Of course I am. You got to roster all the Chiefs.
What a guess.
Tonight, come on. I mean, geez. Look, I'm putting Mahomes in my captain, so I need some value, right?
Yes.
Not going to be Kelsey, not going to be Hill. It's going to be DeMarcus Robinson, like I said. I really like DeMarcus Robinson's chance of getting in the end zone tonight. He's going to be my touchdown call. Look, if you look back over the last little bit, obviously he had a couple big games when Watkins was out. Then his role got diminished. But last week, top 5 targets, and his snap count went up, and Watkins went down. Sammy Watkins is not good, and I think the Chiefs are starting to figure that out. They like DeMarcus Robinson. They've had him around for a couple of years now. He's really clicked in certain spots with Mahomes, and I really feel like with the Chargers' top 2 cover corners being pretty good and probably going to shut down at least Watkins. I don't know if they'll shut down Hill. It could open up some space for DeMarcus Robinson in this game. I really like him at 4,400. Again, if you're going to have Mahomes there, it could easily see one big play to DeMarcus Robinson and pay off. So I like that choice tonight, that pairing, I should say, tonight.
All right, so Jeff's been all Kansas City. Reed, are you going with another Charger for value?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I kind of mentioned it at the top or at the last question that Darrell Williams, if we find out, again, this is, you have to take this into account, if LaShawn McCoy is a healthy scratch, Darrell Williams at $4,200, we've seen what this Chiefs backfield can do. It's really a position where it yields a lot of fantasy points, right? And that's why we liked Damian Williams at the beginning of the season. Now we're seeing it back to where we thought he was going to, where he was going to produce at now when LaShawn McCoy fumbled. And Darrell Williams could be that guy if McCoy is not in. Like 15 touches, 12 to 15 touches isn't out of the realm if we see the McCoy doesn't go. I will also mention, though, a Charger and Mike Williams. I think a lot of people are going to go towards him to see, okay, well, can he produce? He's got the most yards without a touchdown in the NFL right now in terms of receivers. And that's really the case with Mike Williams, is that we're not seeing his touchdown upside. And those cornerbacks in the Chiefs, they're playing really well. And so that scares you. He does spend 30% of the time in the slot. And so hopefully he can hit pay dirt somewhere around there. But again, looking at that price tag where Mike Williams is, I really wouldn't want to go there. A lot of people might, just because the other guys like Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry are a little bit more expensive. But I would stick with a guy like Darrell Williams if we hear that LaShawn McCoy is out. Okay,
I just got a tweet here from ESPN's Kansas City Chiefs reporter. Damian Williams and LaShawn McCoy are both active for the Chiefs against the Chargers.
Better come up with a new value play, Reed.
I guess we'll go back to Reed.
McCoy, then. I mean, play LaShawn McCoy. Look, this is coming in like an hour before kickoff, an hour and a half before kickoff. And if people set their lineups early, LaShawn McCoy, again, we've seen that he was potentially the RB1, 1A in that backfield when Damian Williams wasn't exactly healthy. And that's what we like to see in this backfield. And maybe we look at this and the Chiefs going back to what Andy Reid really wants to do, which is feature either one back or these 2 backs as opposed to all 3. But I would just switch. And the same things that I said about Darrell Williams can be applied to LaShawn McCoy.
I think one thing is for sure, it's going to be a bit of a guessing game, but the person who nails the running back on the Chiefs tonight is probably going to win all the money. So, that's
all right.
Okay, Reed, is it worth playing either defense or kicker?
No, not really. Kansas City, I think, is the defense that you would have to go with in this if you wanted to, if that's what the salary is telling you in terms of what you have to pay. We see them get after the quarterback. We see a lot of these teams that have to pass against Kansas City because Mahomes can put up 30 points in the first, or the Chiefs can put up 30 points in the first half. And so that is the way I would go in terms of how they blitz the quarterback and what just we saw with the Raiders and what they did to Rivers last time. But I don't think you would have to play a kicker in this or even a DST.
Jeff, any use in doing this?
I like Harrison Butker. I mean, come on. I mean, look, we're in Mexico City, man. The air's thin. Like, maybe we'll see a 70-yard kick or something. Butker's got some range. I mean, he's got a long of 54 yards. He's put up 16, 18 fantasy points over his last 2 games. This is a high-class kicker analysis I'm going through, by the way. So you're going to want to record this. But look, I mean, it comes down to this, too, right? You've got to think, how is the game going to go? The Chiefs are entering in here as pretty big favorites. The Chargers kicker might be in a spot where the Chargers are going to have to bypass late field goals just because they're going to be down by a touchdown. They're going to need to get a touchdown. Whereas Andy Reid loves to just pile on field goals once he gets ahead. It's kind of not really his greatest coaching trait, but he does it. And again, it's Mexico City, so I think there's going to be more inclination to go from 50 yards. I think Butker actually could have a pretty big game. There's not really a ton of reliable options like after DeMarcus Robinson and Butker either. So I don't mind paying up for him if you can get him in.
All right, how about some definite fades for tonight, Jeff? Who are you not touching?
One's easy. I'd never play Sammy Watkins. Imagine Sammy Watkins on a night when everyone's probably going to play him too because they expect a shootout, and he's gotten like 8, averaging like 9 targets over his last 2 games. He has not scored a touchdown since week 1. He plays with Patrick Mahomes. He's in like an every down role. I just can't even get over how ineffective Sammy Watkins is just as a player. But for fantasy purposes, I do think he makes a good fade. The Chargers do have 2 pretty good cover corners on the outside. Like I said, Tyreek Hill is basically uncoverable anyways. But with Sammy Watkins, I really do feel like they're going to be able to shut down. That's kind of why I like going to DeMarcus Robinson. So I'm fading Sammy Watkins.
You're just upset because he scored 3 touchdowns week 1 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's why you're upset. Reed, what do you think? What do you got for absolute fades? Who's not in your lineup for sure?
That's some hard-hitting analysis on why Ulrich doesn't like Sammy Watkins. I think that's general consensus that Sammy Watkins is always a red herring when it comes to the Chiefs receivers. He looks good on paper, and he just never performs. He's $6,000, so I think it's an easy fade. It's Travis Kelce for me. And look, the price at $9,000, if you want to fit him in the flex spot, is fine. It's not where we've seen his price tag before, but he's just not playing up to that caliber at which we've seen Travis Kelce play, and specifically in this matchup against the Chargers. He never does well against the Chargers away from Arrowhead. You look at his last 3 games when he's played Los Angeles, he's netted 3 catches for 15 yards combined. Like, he just does not do well against this team, even though the Chargers are going to have, backups in their secondary. They're riddled with injuries. He just doesn't perform, and spending that much and trying to pair which one of these Chiefs, like if you're in the camp of what Jeff is saying, like we want to get the touchdown catchers or the touchdown guys in Kansas City, we just haven't really seen it from Travis Kelce. Now, he can easily get 10 targets, go for 75, 80 yards, and 8 catches. We've seen that in his ceiling, but Tyreek Hill, DeMarcus Robinson, these other guys, there's just better leverage there on a showdown like this as opposed to paying up for Travis Kelce, even though he's a solid player.
Yeah, this is the first matchup this season between these 2 teams this late in the year. So.
All right, before we let you go, Reed, give me a prediction on who you think is going to win and what the final score is going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be Kansas City 35, the Chargers 24.
Oh, Jeff.
High-scoring game.
What say you?
Damn, that was pretty close to mine, Reed. I got the Chiefs 34, Chargers 21.
Nope.
Look, the Chiefs are in a spot. I mean, they lose this game and the Raiders are in first.
There we go.
Oh, God. And they also got some revenge factor coming in from last year when they kind of blew it against the Chargers late in the year. So I think the Chiefs are going to win big.
What was that about the Raiders, Jeff?
They could possibly be in first place in the division.
Reed's like dancing. He's like, yeah.
Max Crosby, 4 sacks. I mean, can we say he's better than Khalil Mack? No, we can't. That's blasphemy.
That would be egregious, but
egregious on all accounts.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for your help. Tonight, Monday Night Football, we get the Chargers and the Chiefs. First time they are meeting this season, and it's really a must-win for the Chargers. They are looking for a wild card, and Kansas City, meanwhile, let's see if they keep it going. So that'll do it for us.
Yeah, that's a show, folks. The Sweat will be back tomorrow at 6. We will see you then.